أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you again for joining us for the second session of our course on the history of Quran translation into English. We had some interesting discussion last week, and I'm glad that some of you also pursued later on. Please feel free to ask questions. We will inshallah pause after every 3 or 4 slides to take your questions or just seek clarifications. This will be our second and the last session of this course. Although this is a detailed course which can even take almost 10 sessions on account of number of things available, but this was just to give you an idea that you can see how Quran was being translated over time and how it has gone through different phases. So let us continue. As usual, we start with this dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. Allahumma akhrajni min zulumat al-wahm wa akrimni min nur al-fahm. Allahumma aftah alayna abwaba rahmatik wa anshur alayna khazaina ulumika bi rahmatik ya arhamar rahimin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful, O Allah, remove me from the darkness of doubt and error and fill me with the light of understanding. O Allah, open for us the doors of your mercy and unfold for us the treasure of your knowledge, O the most merciful of the merciful. May Allah bless Prophet and his heart. As we said that this hadith we have discussed a number of times, I won't repeat it, but studying Quran has a lot of benefits. And Prophet said that if you desire the life of fortunate and those with felicitations, if you desire the death of the martyrs, if you desire salvation on the day of judgment, if someone desires security on the day of fear, light on the day of darkness, if you desire shade on the day of scorching heat, and quenching on the day of thirst, and if you like, weighing down of your good deeds on the day when the deeds will be the day of light, that means when the weight scale will be light. If you desire guidance at the occasion of going astray, then study the Quran. The Prophet says, Fadrusul Quran. These two words, Fadrusul Quran, that means at once it's a command that study the Quran. فَإِنَّهُ كَلَامُ الرَّحْمَنِ, because it is the speech of the most merciful. وَحِرْزُ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ, it is a hirz, it is the best protection against shaitan. وَرُجْحَانٌ فِي الْمِيزَانِ, and of course it is the something which will help in increasing the weight of good deeds. So of course I really appreciate your taking time and your interest in studying the Quran. This is one of the aspects of studying the Quran. So let us get to a discussion. Last week we said that we have divided Quran into 7 phases, the history of Quran. In the 7 phases, we discussed the first 4 phases. The remaining 3 phases we'll discuss today. And the last, what is the future we expect of the translation. The first phase was that there was opposition to translating into the Quran in another language, right? A lot of opposition. You'll also find, for example, some of the titles of the translations also they're trying to say it's just interpretation of the meaning. They don't say it's a translation, because even the translator would not try to say that this is the Quran. It is just what meaning of the Quran. You'll find, for example, some of the well-known translators, they will just give the name that it is the meaning of the Quran. In fact, that it is not original Quran. But of course, we overcame this thing. Today, we'll give you, for example, the first translators of English from India and Pakistan. These were purely there to try to counter the efforts of Christians to discredit the Quran. So of course, later on we realized that we need to translate now. The second phase was first English translations from French. That was in 1649 by Alexander Rose, which we discussed about it in detail. The third phase is English translation from Arabic, followed by 2 more translations. This is 18th century translations, 19th century. This is by Sale, and then later on 2 other translations, as we'll see. That these, we discussed about it last time, that they were totally there to promote Christianity and use Quran, just trying to display Quran with a bad, for example, perhaps view. So people, Christians, should not be attracted towards Quran. Subhanallah. In spite of that, their efforts, and even up to today, you find that Islam is the fastest growing religion. And there are so many women, non-Muslim women in UK and USA are accepting Islam in spite of all this kind of propaganda and trying to present the Quran in a bad picture, right? So that was their aim, which never worked, right? Of course, for 1 century they were able to achieve their aim, but later on it was correct. Then, of course, the Qadiani Ahmadi influence. The first so-called Muslim who translated Quran were by Qadian Ahmadi. Of course, they had influence because they were the first Muslims. Number one, number two, the translation was quite good if you compare with the original Arabic. Their language was good. The translation was almost correct, from the original, except that when it came to belief in the last prophet, that Muhammad is the last prophet, Khatmun Nabiyyin, since they believe that Ghulam Ahmad from Qadian is the one who is the last prophet, is the prophet also, then of course they try to change certain places, right? But otherwise the translation is good. So it had an influence over other translations to come, right? Then came now the fifth phase, Muslim translators. There were some Muslim translators who did very good work, and the impact is lasting up to today. Two of them you'll see are Yusuf Ali and Pictor. You'll find that Pictor, Yusuf Ali are being used even up to today. We'll discuss about them. Then came Orientalists, right? Again, Christians, Orientalists, non-Muslims who started translating, but realizing that whatever was done in 19th century was not correct. No, it is giving us bad name. Muslims have realized now they speak English, they understand Arabic, so they have come up with a lot of criticism. Especially people have written books against Orientalism. There is a very good book by Edward Said. Anybody interested should read about Orientalists by Edward Said. Edward Said had written a very good book, a criticism about the Orientalists and their goals and what they were trying to say. So these Orientalists realized that now we have been exposed. People are writing against us. Let us come up with translation which is little better so people would trust us. So indeed, they came with some good translations. We are going to discuss about it, inshallah. And then, of course, the current phase whereby more Muslims are trying to translate continuously. Many translations are coming out in the last, this just since in 21st century, 20th century, you find many people are translating. And then, of course, the next phase, we believe that we don't need to translate anymore. I think there is enough translation has been done. What we need perhaps is tafsir or footnotes, or perhaps, for example, using the existing translations and then trying to just highlight those translation, those within the translation, those verses or those passages which are well translated. So we can combine, for example, if somebody has to, example, shortlist 5 translations, and within 5 translations, we try to, for example, choose those passages in verses and surahs which are well translated. This is what I personally believe should be done. But of course, God knows best how things are going to go. So let's continue now, right? So this is now the next phase of translation, which is the early Muslim translators, right? Now you can see the first Muslim translator besides Qadiani, we are not about Qadiani, right? Was 1911. Alhamdulillah, during our exhibition in 2018, we were able to get a copy of this from University of Toronto, and then we also tried to scan it. So we might have in our archive. It is the first English translation by a Muslim. Either who has seen this translation has also reviewed it. He says both in its conception and execution, it's a poor work. So of course it was the first translation, but he considers it a poor work because of language and the way it has been presented. But this was, you can see, the first, Abul Fadl is the first Muslim translator in 1911, early 20th century. Now still you should know that at this time British are ruling over India and Pakistan, so they came up with this translation. Immediately within 5 years, somebody by the name Hayrat Dehlavi, he came with another translation. and it claims to present a complete and exhaustive reply to the manifold criticism of the Quran by various Christian authors such as Dr. Sale, Rodwell, Palmer, and William Moore. Now, of course, the first three, Sale, Rodwell, and Palmer, as we discussed last week, these are people who translated Quran in the 19th century, right? William Moore has written a book on the Prophet. He has not translated the Quran. So this person, Dehlavi, was actually translating the Quran and wanted to respond to this. So Kidavi, who has reviewed this translation, he says it represents a pious undertaking of some well-meaning, though not competent Muslims, right? So of course it is a pious undertaking, but still not competent. But you can see, as we said earlier, the first translations came into being because the Muslims realized that if we don't translate the Quran, if we just listen to what the ulama are saying of not translating the Quran, then these Christians are going to continuously say bad things about Islam and Quran. So it was the time, it was the exigency of the time, a particular time, that they saw that there is so much criticism against Islam and Muslims, especially in India, Pakistan, where British were ruling. So they automatically had to come up with something. So you can see that they, even although there was opposition, but they had to translate. So this clearly shows, you can see that this now, Dehlavi says that it is a complete and exhaustive reply to the manifold criticisms of the Quran by Christians, right? And he gives the name also. So to Sale, Rodwell, and Palmer. These are people who translate Quran in 19th century, right? And William Moore, who wrote a book against the Quran. If you just Google, just try to Google Sir William Moore, you'll find that written the book whereby he has written against the Prophet so much. What you find today happening in Denmark or Paris or France, this is all still the remnants of what William Moore had said against the Prophet and these people who had said against the Prophet. These things are still up to today. You can see things are there, right? Then, of course, came Ghulam Sarwar. Now, Ghulam Sarwar was even better, right? He did even a better job, 1920. This translation undertaken by a Muslim scholar against the backdrop of colonial, missionary, Orientalist attacks against Islam. Again, you can see. So there was an attack by the colonial people, by missionaries, and also Orientalists had started now. So he had to come up with this thing. And this is the first translation of the Muslim which was reprinted. You can see Abul Fadl and Dehlavi was never reprinted because people realized that its quality was not good, it was not competent, right? But this Ghulam Sarwar's translation was somehow better, and that is why you can see it was reprinted in 1930 in Malaysia, and in 1973 again it was reprinted, right? Because they found that it was something which needs to be done. So, actually, but at the same time, as we said earlier, this Ghulam Sarwar says for 10 years I used to the translation of Muhammad Ali by Qadiani. Although he doesn't mention the word Qadiani, either he didn't realize it or just because he realized that this may be a sensitive, so he did not. He just said by translation by Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, of course, the translation we referred last week is the first Qadiani translation, which was 1917, right? So, of course, but he praises a lot, and perhaps maybe Muhammad Ali must have what influenced him. But in any case, Ghulam Sarwar came up with a better product somehow, although it did not become that popular as the next two. Right? Then came in 1930 by Marmaduke Pickthall. The Marmaduke Pickthall, of course, is somebody who has done a job, very good work. Even my library, one of the oldest what translation of the Quran which I have is that of Pickthall. Before other Quran came, this Quran was with me because I found that some of the translation, his rendering was quite good, right? And not only that, it was quite honest. It was something original. There is no, it does not seem at all that when you look at Pickthall, you don't find that he has referred to any past translations. It seems that he has actually translated from Arabic, right? And you can see at the same time, he also realized that he said the meaning of the glorious Quran, an explanatory translation. You can see he realized that the Quran is something which is sacred, the language also is sacred, and that is why he does not say it is the Quran. He says the meaning of the glorious Quran. Once we say the meaning, that means realize that no, it is not the original Quran. And this kind of acceptance was something which was very good, because immediately when he translated, when his copy came out, Muslims accepted, even the scholars accepted, because the scholars said he does not claim that this is the Quran. He just said this is the meaning of the Quran. That means this is the understanding, how he understands. So even the title of the translation itself was something which was welcomed by the scholars and as well as the public, right? And then somebody by the name Arafat K. Al-Ashi revised this translation. What he did is that Arafat then removed the archaic language, because Pickthall originally was a Christian. He was a son of of a clergy, right, bishop. So he had a Christian influence. So he used biblical terms and phrases in translating. Although he had become Muslim by 1914, he had already become Muslim. So 16 years before he published the work, he was a Muslim already. In 1990, he was Imam of the Walking Masjid in UK, right? There is also a very good book. I have a book on the life of Pickthall. No? There's a whole book I have in my library, and if you read that, it's quite interesting. No? So this Pickthall, of course, he used this archaic language. So Arafat worked on his translation and removed the archaic language, and also some of the places even made it better. And then somebody by the name, Jane McAuliffe. Jane McAuliffe, she is the one who has edited the Encyclopedia of Quran. It is in 6 volumes. I have in my collection 6 volumes. So Jane has, and she also has written some of the very good articles on Islam. Now she's an Orientalist. Now. She also worked on the same translation in 2017. So the revised translation of Pickthall is something which is worth keeping. You should have in your library. It's very important that sometimes if you like to, for example, refer to something else, right? He has done it, and rarely has Pickthall been any sectarian. Although he was a Sunni Imam, he was serving Sunnis, but at that time there was no Shia Sunni, any kind of Shia Sunni tension, right? So you will not find any kind of sectarian colors in his translation. So you should look at this revised one by El Ashi and later on by Jane McAuliffe. No? So this is, and that is why 80 editions appear in the last 25 years. Just in the last 25 years, this Pickthall translation has been printed 80 times, right? Different editions because of its popularity. Okay, so this is something which is early Muslim translators, and the impact has remained up to today, right? Then, of course, immediately after that, in 1930, he published within 4 years Abdullah Yusuf Ali. He started publishing. Now, mind you, Abdullah Yusuf Ali, he is writing, he is now an Indian. He's actually, I was told he was the Bahri, right? So he's from India, he's a Bahri, right? And he started translating. He started from 34, started publishing in parts, and by 1937, he completed the work, right? The Glorious Quran, text, translation, and commentary. So he differs from Pickthall in the sense that Pickthall translation was never published with Arabic text until recently. I think either I've seen one with Arabic text either by Ansarian or somebody else has done it. I'm not sure, but Pickthall was always just only the translation. Yusuf Ali's translation, because he was aiming at Muslim population and Muslim, Yusuf Ali is no longer writing to answer the Christians. You should know. Yusuf Ali's audience is Muslims, direct Muslims. Of course, Christians can benefit. So because of that, he published, and there was text, Arabic text, translation, as well as also commentary. So, and this also had very high impact. This has been printed over 200 times just in the last few years, right? 200 times. It gained popularity. The only problem with Yusuf Ali is that he has problem with some of the beliefs like Jannat and Jahannam and those things. He believes that these are all metaphoric. He doesn't believe that this is reality. No, he has problem in believing that Jannat and Jahannam really exist. Allah will really burn. So because he was not a scholar, keep in mind, he was master in language, in English and also Arabic. His English was so good that before every surah, he introduces the whole content of the surah in a poetry form, which is beautiful. Now, if you just look at the Yusuf Ali translation, we find before every surah, there's a poetry, right? He captures the content of every surah in a poetic form. So it's quite interesting. And this, of course, this shows that he studied the surah, he was able to capture the meaning of the surah, and then rendered it into in a poetry, right? So Abdullah Yusuf in that way was very powerful, right? So he published this thing, meaning of the Holy Quran, and it became very popular. And when the Saudis wanted to publish Quran into English and give to Hujjaj who were coming for what for Hajj, they use Yusuf Ali's Quran. But of course, they realized that it has some problem in his commentary, so they changed those commentaries and then they publish it. So you can see, for example, the title changed the meaning of the Holy Quran. Do you see in 1977 when Saudi started publishing Yusuf Holy Quran, they even changed the meaning, the title. They said the meaning of the Holy Quran. The way, for example, Pictolet said the meaning of the Holy Quran, and then changing the word God to Allah. Now, Yusuf Ali had said God earlier, then what Saudis came and changed back, detranslated. That means they went back toward Allah, right, from God to Allah in 1989. So these are some of the changes they made, but it is most popular, and in fact, many of the Shia homes also have still this translation because it has those footnotes, right? Very popular. Of course, now we should be careful. After Yusuf Ali, another Muslim who came, and which was a good translation, was Daryabadi. Abdul Majid Daryabadi, who started publishing in 1941, but gradually until 57, right? And this was, of course, very good. It was again published in 1981, 85 after his death. And a re-edition has been issued 3 times in 2001 because Daryabadi came in parts. He published in parts. But finally, they just published a brief version in 2001. So Daryabadi's translation also is good. Somehow, it did not gain popularity the way it was what Hector in Yusuf Ali. Perhaps because Daryabadi was not rich, he could not get some good publisher company to publish it. But his work was good. So if those of us, I can see here in the audience today, we've got some speakers here, people who are who do speaking or teach in madrasa. I would suggest that you should keep Daryabadi in your library, and even server. If you can get a server, it will be good. But Daryabadi will be a good one if you can add to your library. We go to the next slide. Of course, because my audience is Shia Muslims, all of us I can see, and I'm sure that you will be, your question will be that which are the Shia translators? So let us look at Shia translators. These are the few Shia translators. At least you should know about it. The first Shia translator claimed, at least from the title, it was 1954 Ali Muhammad Fazl Chinoy. I was able to get these his printed copies in 7 sets in a library in 1980s when I was a resident alim in Edmonton. At that time, I was able to get in the library, and immediately I photocopied it, and then it was scanned. Right, the glorious Quran translated with commentary of divine lights. But at the same time, when I looked at it, he has not translated the Quran. He had used the existing translation. There was a translation by Sayyid Maqbul Ahmad. His translation was there. He used the translation, but then added footnotes. He added footnotes from Umdatul Bayan. Umdatul Bayan is a commentary, Quran commentary, in Urdu. He used from that footnotes and just put footnotes in there. And this is published in 7 sets. Because at that time I had not done much study about translation of the Quran. This is 1980s I'm talking about, right? So immediately I just took a photocopy of it and I sent it to alislam.org. So they also put on their website, and also the Academy of Islam website also has this set. But keep in mind that he has not translated it, number one. Number two, even the footnotes which are there, which are correct, which are of course according to Shia Mazhab, but they have been just translated from Umdatul Bayan. So it is not something original. But this was 1954. I'm just letting you know because maybe from the title somebody may think that this is the first translation. Then second comes Ahmed Shakir, 1959. Now again 59 or 58, I'm not sure, but I remember that in olden days they didn't used to put date, but I remember having this translation many years ago. So I think it is 1959. But later on in our gathering today, we have the brother Onali Khalfan with us. Maybe he will let us know because he was the first one to publish translation of M.S. Shakir in America in 1968. But I feel that it was before that published in what in Pakistan and later on then also in Iran. So M.S. Shakir, the Quran, the most popular Shia Muslim translator. With numerous footnotes, he brings forth Islamic Shia beliefs and links them with Quranic verses. So, for example, when he wants to talk about Ghadir, when he wants to talk about what Imam being Masoom, when he talks about that Imam cannot be a Zalim, he uses those Quranic verses and puts the footnotes as appearing in the tafsir. So he has done a good work. But again, there is a lot of controversy regarding him, so we'll have two slides about it later on. Then comes 1964. S.V. Mir Ahmad Ali, Sajadi, Wafa Khani Mir Ahmad Ali, and Ayatollah Aga Mirza Mehdi Puya, Yazdi. The Holy Quran with English translation of the Arabic text and commentary according to the version of the Holy Al-Bayt. This was my first Quran. When I started taking interest into Quran as a student, this was my first exposure, 1964. It was published in Karachi, and then by the time it came to Nairobi with us, we started using this. It has been reprinted several times in Pakistan and also in USA. It is the first Shia translation with explanatory notes in English. Its abridged version, printed by Pir Muhammad Ibrahim Trust in 1990, is good for beginners who like to study and comprehend Quranic message. In other words, I can see some teachers here and also some parents, and I can see some lecturers. As a lecturer, as a madrasa teacher, you should recommend your youths, those who are going to college and university. They must read this, Pir Muhammad Ibrahim Trust, abridged version, which was done in 1990. This is a must because what happens is a simple translation. Number one, the footnotes are very few, and also the footnotes just explain some of the things which are not clear in the translation. So I feel that this is very good. Now the footnotes appear on alislam.org, but the translation of Minamali does not appear somehow. Alislam.org has, for example, a translation of Pictol, of Yusuf Ali, and M.S. Shakir, but it does not have the translation of Mir Ahmad Ali. But there was only translation published in red cover. This is the only I've seen, only translation. I think maybe TTQ might also done it. So that is a good translation, only translation if we see. And with this abridged version of footnotes, it is a must for every youth who is going to college and university to start with. Then comes Said Ali Kuli Karai, 2003, right? The Quran with a phrase by phrase English translation. Now this is slowly becoming popular. It has a few footnotes, but a comprehensive 65 pages index of subjects, names, and terms. We discussed this thing, those who attended my class on how to study the Quran, and this index is also there on the website, right? So here's a rich index of subjects, names, and terms. This is important if you want to study the Quran thematically. So you can just take a subject and take all the verses and study. It has been printed several times from Iran, UK, USA, and even now from Australia, which is the 6th revised version. So the translator, Said Ali Kuli Karai, whom I know personally, is alhamdulillah still living, is in Qum, and people are sending him some feedback, and he has been revising. Although I would request all of you who are attending here that his email appears also in his translation of Mafati. If you people can impress upon him to simplify some of the words, his translation is good, but because he does not live in the West, because he sometimes translates, wants to translate and trying to be very honest to the original word, he is not ready to be little liberal and simplify the word. In the process, he uses some of the very difficult words. not only the difficult words, but some of the words which we don't use in our daily life, right? So this is a shortcoming which I believe that if besides myself, if you also as a audience here, if you write to him and continuously, for example, tell him that no, your translation is good, but you need to rework on it and simplify it, maybe inshallah Allah will give him the tawfiq to work and revise it. Because he has revised, for example, six revised. I have in my library the third revision, you know, I think third or fourth revision, but still he has still kept some of the those difficult words. But it is a good translation, there is no doubt. Now we come to the controversy regarding M.S. Shakir, because M.S. Shakir is something which is very popular with the Shia, right? His translation was first published in 1950s from Karachi. It was widely used by English-speaking Shia Muslims in Pakistan, in India, in Iran, in UK and East Africa, because immediately people realized that Yusuf Ali, although it's popular, but still does not serve a purpose. No, people realize, especially those who had some insight, they realized. So they wanted some Shia translation, and that is how, for example, you can see that Yusuf Ali, what Shakir became popular. It is also found in most Western libraries. Some are people who have worked hard that they have been able to promote this, and it is found in Western libraries. He uses Shia beliefs to understand various Quranic verses and includes them in footnotes. It is said that he used an existing translation and made required change in line with his belief and presented to the work of English-speaking audience, especially youth. No? So this Muhammad Habib Shakir, it is said that Habib Shakir from the Habib family in Pakistan already had a translation with them, which they had not published. He took over. He took the responsibility and just simplified it and published it. There is somebody whom I know personally here in Toronto who knows the family, and he told me that Muhammad Shakir, Ahmed Shakir never claimed himself to be a scholar. His aim was just to help the youths and English-speaking audience of Shias to have the Quran so they can benefit. That was his aim. So he just worked on something which was existing. In any case, Yasin Jiburi, who has edited his work when publishing from New York, he wrote to me only recently, yesterday, only 2 days ago, when I wrote to him. In his email, he says, you can see just 2 days back, right? I found Shakir's translation to be the best simply because its English is closer to today's current state usage of this language, contrary to other such translations. So you can imagine, although it was done in 50s, but you can imagine somebody writing in 1920 also says that his language is simpler. This is something which is very important. That in the past, even for example, Kuli Karai, who has done his translation, started working in 2003 and has revised in 2019 or 20, even then cannot go down to that simplicity. But M.S. Shaki was able to do that, you can see, right? I found this translation easy to understand and more acceptable to those who speak English as a native language. This is what Jiburi says. As regarding to the charge of plagiarism, this charge was publicized by and promoted by some members of Ahmadi group. I reject it and sure Allah knows the best. So this is what Yasin Jiburi says. Now Yasin Jiburi himself has translated many, many books. Now if you just Google, you'll find that many books. And he told me personally that he also has translated the entire Nahj Balaga, which is available in 3 volumes. I have not seen the translation. Inshallah, I have a plan to order the volume 1 and check it to see that if it is really something worth keeping. So when he says like that thing, it carries weight because he himself knows Arabic and he has published many books and translated many books. Again, let's continue with this M.S. Shakir, right? See the next slide. What are the criticism? John Olson, in his study commissioned by, now again, keep in mind, this study, although is by Orientalists, but it's commissioned by Ahmadiyya. He writes, it is simply not possible to doubt that Maulana Muhammad Ali's 1971 and revised 1951 translation was plagiarized by Shakir. So you can imagine that he does the study. There's a whole article, you can go online. He has the whole article and tries to bring all those different kind of passages. And then at the end, he says, it is simply not possible to doubt that no Shakir has plagiarized. On the other hand, Abdul Rahim Kidawi, whom I've met personally and whose book I've used for my this course, Abdul Rahim Kidawi, I've got two of his book. He reviews all the translations. He has two book. One book has a review of 60 translations, and then another book he has what study of critical study of the first century English translation. This also I've got, and I personally met him. He is a professor in a legal university. So I went to see him only 2 years ago in December 2018. After I saw his work, I told him that no, and he also saw our work of exhibition, so he invited me to the university. He, on the other hand, he says that no, Shakir has plagiarized from Yusuf Ali. So can you imagine this is interesting. See what he says. He says that no, M.S. Shakir is the ad verbatim plagiarized version, bodily lifted word by word from Abdullah Yusuf Ali's earlier rendering. He then quotes 10 passages from the two translations, saying that they unmistakably point to the Shakir's unscrupulous, unacknowledged borrowing from Ali Yusuf Ali. So quite interesting. What is interesting that Qadiani said that Yusuf Shakir has translated from us, copied from us. And then Kidawi says that Shakir has copied from Yusuf Ali. Now, it seems to me that there is some kind of prejudice here, right? Because if Kidawi really wants to say that no, Shakir has plagiarized, why doesn't he go back to Muhammad Ali, which was 1971, right? Why is it saying Yusuf Ali? So is it possible that Yusuf Ali himself might have, for example, what copied from Muhammad Ali, which he did not realize? We don't know. This is quite interesting. So somebody can do the study. I can see some of you here. You can even do, for example, essay on this, right? This is what this is what I'll tell you as far as studying his work and talking to somebody here in Toronto who knows Shakir's family. My personal understanding is that most probably M.S. Shakir has used an available translation or translations, either one or two, and simplified with footnotes to assist English-speaking Shia Muslims, especially the youths. Nowhere does he claim to have personally translated from Arabic, Urdu, or Persian. No, Shaki does not say at all that he's a scholar, nor does he say that this is a translation from Arabic. So he does not claim. He just published this thing and just wrote M.A. Shaki, right? So he has not claimed. But interestingly, it has been published 50 times since 1968. So perhaps what I would say is that because he had a sincere intention, Allah has, made his work, go wider, right? But this is what it is. We don't know more than that. No. If anybody here in the audience knows something more, please share with us as we, I will pause here to see if there are any question from you or any kind of clarification. Yes, I don't see any kind of question. So please continue writing your questions. I'll try to answer. Let's continue. We go to the next slide. Now, interestingly, as we say, that the earliest Muslim translators were people living in India, Pakistan. And they did this because they were threatened by the missionaries who were trying to talk against Islam and Muslims, especially because they were surrounded by British who were ruling over them, and British had mandated that the Muslims everybody should learn English, right? So the Muslim population, the Muslim scholars, the Muslim organization institutions in India, Pakistan, at that time, of course, there was only India, they were threatened by what the missionaries are doing. So they took the initiative of translating the Quran. And that is why we didn't find the Arabs translating the Quran. They never saw any kind of threat, right? Even the propaganda against Islam in the Middle East was done in Arabic. So the Arabs did not see the reason of translating it into English. But the first Arab translator, who was a Jew actually from Iraq, did in 1956 by N.J. Dawood, Nassim Joseph Dawood. But you can see he just in the translation he just says N.J. Dawood, so you don't even know that it is. He puts the last name Dawood, which is David. So it's very smart. Although Dawood is is an Arabic word, usually it's a David, but his name is Joseph and also Nassim, but he does not put that. He just puts N.J. Dawood, right? The Quran, right? He was an Iraqi Jew and the first Arab to translate the Quran into English. at the age of 29 years. When he came up with his translation and he just announced that I have translated this Quran at the age of 29, the Penguin, which is very popular publishing company, bought it from him. They said, we will publish it. And then they published simultaneously at that time in 1950s, you can imagine, mid 50s. This was translated, published at the same time, simultaneously from US, from the UK, and Canada. Since then, it has been printed 50 times. So it is very popular. I know one person, Marhum Hassan A.M. Jafar. Many of you know him. He was quite, he was a writer himself. He was an articulate, prolific writer and also articulate. One day I saw him quoting from the Quranic verse. This was Mombasa. I was visiting Mombasa and he was there as a translation. And I saw him quoting a verse. Immediately I told him that this does not seem to me correct. And he said, no, I'm using Anja Dawood and this is a very good translation. Now at that time I realized, you can see that how much Anja Dawood's translation had influenced people that even they didn't realize. Then I told him, do you know that this translator is not a Muslim to start with? Secondly, he's a Jew. And thirdly, for example, that what you have is actually a revised than what was done earlier. In fact, the first translation in my library is by Anja Dawood. I still have it. And interestingly, it was given to me when I was in grade 2. When I was in grade 2, a Hindu friend of mine gifted me with a Quran. He said that I have your holy book, which I don't need it. And he gave it to me. I still have my library. At that time, this is Anja Dawood's translation. This is 19, I went to school in 1962, I think 61, 62. So you can imagine, 62, you're talking of many years ago. I still have it. And then at that time, Anja Dawood had published this translation, even arranged what surahs in a different order. He said the order is of the chronological order. So he didn't change the order of the surahs. Marhum Hassan A.M. Jafar, when he was using the translation, it was then the order of surah was again changed to the traditional order because there was a lot of criticism against this thing. So a Penguin came with another version of Anja Dawood, but this time again using the traditional order. Al-Fatiha, Al-Baqarah, Al-Imran, Al-Nisa, Al-Maida, Al-An'am, you can see. In any case, but it was a very popular translation and also easy to read. That was Anja Dawood, right? Then in 2004, somebody by the name M.S. Abdul Halim. Now this is an Arab. I think he's from Egypt, the way I understand. He before coming to translation, he came up with a dictionary of Quran, a dictionary of very good, popular dictionary. Because it was published by Oxford, it's very expensive. In fact, I don't even have in my own library the dictionary, but I saw it. It's a very popular dictionary whereby he takes a Quranic word and explains thoroughly all the meanings and all the shades of the meaning, right? He does this. So he came up with the dictionary, and then he came with the translation, which was published by Oxford. So because it was published by Oxford, it became very popular, and libraries started using it. Paperback. It was in paperback edition initially, but later on, I think it has come with Arabic text. I saw two of his editions, both paperback and also hard. Both are only English. But I think recently, if I'm not mistaken, it has come with Arabic text. So he came up with this translation. And what he has done that before translation, he has done justice by including some of the articles of faith, history of revelation, compiled from English translation of the Quran and Prophet Muhammad's exemplary life. These things are very helpful. These articles and this introduction which are there is very important because you cannot start Quran immediately. We are Muslims, so we know what Islam. But a non-Muslim, when he picks up the copy of the Quran and just starts reading translation, would get lost. They need introduction. So M.S. Abdul Halim has done this justice of writing a comprehensive introduction about Islam and the Prophet and about the Quran itself, which is useful, right? However, he imposes modern ideas into translation, saying that cultural context is different today compared to when Quran was revealed. For example, one example is he says that in olden days the women did not get involved in business; they did not come out. That is why you needed two witnesses of women. But today, that's not the case. Today, we've got CEOs who are Muslim, who are women. Today, Muslim come out or women come out, in open. So there is no need to have any longer or two witnesses. That was a cultural context. Now, this is very serious. What happens once you do this thing? Once you start bringing such things, then you make Quran as a historical document. You see, and this very serious. I don't know why he was blind to this thing. If he says that in olden days women did not do business, he's forgetting the most important businesswoman at that time was Janabi Khadija, right? Janabi Khadija was the very popular businesswoman, and history is aware of it. No? It was the wealth of Khadija which actually helped Islam spread, right? Prophet did not have money. It was Khadija's wealth which Prophet used to do the missionary work. So he forgot about that thing, no? So when Quran was being revealed, when Quran said that you need two women witnesses, the first person to object should have been Khadija. On the contrary, Khadija was the first woman to accept Rasulullah and believe Rasulullah, right? So you can imagine sometimes the scholars, when they start teaching in the Western universities, they get somehow influenced by these things. It's very serious. No? So this is the problem, and that's why I've not included them as those, Then comes 2018, Tarif Khalid. Now, I believe he's Lebanese. I'm not sure, but this was published in Lebanon. This is the paperback edition I have in my library. And this was done by Penguin. And it was good because Penguin now realized that when they published NJ Dawood, they became unpopular. So then perhaps by publishing Tarif Khalid, they were not done justice. Now, this is one translation which I feel that if you want to have a translation other than a Shia translation for your library, then you should have the copy by Tarif Khalid. I have used it several times. I've not found any place with any kind of problem, but I've not used it extensively. So I can't claim that everything there is okay. But I have used it. When it came to me some years ago and I bought the copy, I used to always use the translation and compare it with Kuli Karai, right? And I did not find Tariq Khalid any problems. So I found that Tariq Khalid, even for example, you can see this Kidavi says, right, that is a good introduction to covering Muslim belief about Quran and of divine origin. And then he says, the translation is on the whole refreshing and accurate and reader friendly. This is what Kidavi also says, who has reviewed this book. So this is a good translation which I would recommend for you to keep. We'll come here. Now, as we say that Orientalists realized that no, Muslims now know Arabic, Muslims know English, Muslims have started translating the Quran, Muslims have realized about the wrong criticism we have done against the Prophet, against Islam, against the Quran. They realized, so they started coming with a better work. So these are three translations which I feel is by non-Muslims, but at the same time, they at least have done a good work. One is by Arthur J. Arbery, 1955. Now, mind it, I'm not saying that everything there is correct. Please don't take me wrongly, but at least it's far more improved versions than the previous what we found in 19th century by Jay and Palmer, right, and all those things. So Quran reprinted, published in paperback by Oxford. It enjoys immense popularity and reprinted around 30 times. Now, this Arbery actually also visited Egypt, right? He was there. He visited Egypt, and he has translated many works from Urdu, from Persian, from Arabic. So he's actually an scholar. He has the experience of translating dozens of Arabic, Persian, Urdu masterpieces. Actually, his introduction to Quran, which nowadays they don't put it, I don't know why. But in my library, I had also posted on our website, but somehow over time it has disappeared. We'll try to dig it out. He has a very good translation of the introduction to the Quran. It's very good. He mentions the interesting things there. He says that you would never find a Muslim becoming Christian or a Jew, right? On the other hand, you find Christians and Jews accepting Islam, and he says the credit goes to Quran. He says Quran is so powerful that you will not find that a Muslim who has studied the Quran at all changing his religion. So at that time, he realized this thing, Arthur Arbery, right? And of course, there are some problems in this Kidavi and then somebody else who has reviewed this work. they will come up with some of the place whereby they've pointed out some of the problems. But overall, it is a far better work than other Orientalists. And even then, for example, it says the Quran interpreted, you can see. He does not write that's the Quran. He immediately realizes that no, Quran is holy, it is sacred, and when he translates, he calls it interpreted. In other words, it is his understanding. Do you see? So that also is quite interesting coming from an Orientalist as early as 1950s, you can imagine. Thomas, clearly, this is also a quite good work, the Quran New Translations. Now, Kidami observes both the translator and the publisher deserves every credit for this excellent work, which is destined to go a long way in conveying some of the hallmarks of the Quran, especially non-Muslim readers. This is a paperback. In my library, I've got a paperback edition. I don't know if the other editions will come out. So this is another work which, of course, those who are interested to have other translations, you can keep it, especially those who are scholars and who like, And then recently, somebody by Talal Italy, he also, I think, is a Lebanese. He has come up with this Quran translated in English. Now, somehow, Italy actually, he said that he published the Quran with the intention to discredit the Quran. That was his intention. But when translating, he realized the greatness of the Quran. So his translation is simple and faithful rendering from Arabic, except that there are no footnotes, there is no introduction, nothing of that sort. So he wants Quran to speak on its own, which I feel that is not enough. As I said, that Quran is not something that person can immediately start. Anybody who starts the study of the Quran needs to have some background articles, right? We go to the current contemporary Muslim translators, right? Now, Muslims, of course, have started translating. One of the contemporary Muslim translators whose work is praiseworthy is this Ahmad Zaki Hammad. I think, again, he must be Arab, right? A modern phrased interpretation in English. This was initially in 2 volumes, but now they have also abridged into 1 volume, 2014. So this is a good work. He has done a good work. Then Tahir al-Qadri, as you know, Tahir al-Qadri, all of us know, he's quite a well-known figure in Pakistan. Now, his work, of course, is a translation from, Irfan al-Quran, of Urdu. So it is not an original Arabic into English. Although he knows Arabic well, Tahir al-Qadri, of course, is a scholar and he knows Arabic well. But it seems from the translation, I have his translation with me, that it is either translated by himself or he has commissioned somebody, his Urdu translation to be translated to English. So that is also there, should just keep in mind. International Sahih. Now, this is a team of people, they call themselves International Sahih. Right? Quran, English meanings, and notes. They have done a good job. They have tried to use the existing translations, I think, whether it's Yusuf Ali or Pickthall and other, and try to simplify it and referring to Arabic, and also added notes and hadiths. But keep in mind that all these notes and hadiths which are there, these are based on Sunni beliefs, and this is available widely. But the rendering is something which is simpler, easy. So sometimes, for example, if you want to understand, you can look at it, International Sahih. But I don't think that they will translate. It's a team of people who have used the existing translation of either Yusuf Ali or Pickthall, and then they have tried to improve over it. But it is available widely. And of course, somebody by the name Mustafa Khattab, whom some of you, those who attended my exhibition in 2018, we had invited him to do a presentation. He lives in Toronto. He has come with the Clear Quran, a thematic English translation of the message of the final revelation. What he has done, every section, every passage of the Quran, before that he has put a theme. So that's why he calls it thematic English translation. That means, he believes that Quran, within the surah, for example, Surah Baqarah is a huge surah, right? It covers 1/12 of the Quran. So it has so many themes. So before every section or passage, he puts a theme on top of it, which is good, but at the same time, also not a very wise thing, because what happens is that then perhaps within that passage, that theme, that aspect may not be there. Maybe that is an overall theme within that passage, but that's not always the case. But he has done that thing. His translation also is good. He's a little liberal. When he sometimes translates, he's a little liberal, which of course Kuli Karai is somehow, you know, perhaps afraid to do that. So he has been liberal, and that's why his translation is used about simple. There are some footnotes which somebody had pointed out after he came to the exhibition and promoted his translation. Some of our people what bought his translation. After that, a few months later, somebody emailed me showing that some of the footnotes they're critical of Ahmadiyya Islam. I did not have a chance to pursue that, but inshallah, once I get those footnotes, I will contact him because I know him personally. He has recently come up with a clear Quran for kids, Surah number 149 to 114, fully illustrated and published by Furqan Institute. This was just 2019. So, and he's promoting his work quite widely. So you'll find that the clear Quran is available widely now in all the libraries, everywhere, all the masajid in North America. Because what he does is that he tries to get donations, and then in Ramadan, he says that you can buy a Quran at $1. It's a very smart way. He, for example, collects donation during the year, and then in Ramadan, he promotes his Quran to the Muslims, saying that you can buy for dawah purpose $1 a copy, which is a very good idea. And that is how, for example, people buy his copies and then try to distribute widely. For example, I was recently read in a news that somebody bought 50 copies of his Quran for kids and gave it a donation to Sikh Kid Hospital. No? So you can see how they are working dawah. The Sikh Kids Hospital, they go there and then give these 50 copies of Quran free for children. So when they are Muslim children, automatically they are exposed to this thing. So this is quite an aggressive way of promoting. We have completed our presentation. I'll take questions. The last slide, of course, is I'm sure the question will always come. According to my humble opinion, which are the translations we feel we should have? So I feel that these 4 translations should be there. If anybody who would like to have more than one translation should keep the four translations. S.T. Mir Ahmad Ali, only translation. Now I've only seen only one print. S.T. Mir Ahmad Ali only translation was published in 1990 in Karachi by P. Muhammad Ibrahim Trust. Now I'm not seeing it again. Maybe we'll ask Honorary Bhai when he joins us soon if they've printed only this. So that is one which is a good one because it was translated originally, in 1960. Thomas clearly has said that the Quran, the new translation, that is by Orientalists, which is not a bad one. Tarif Khalid, which is an Arab translator from Lebanon, teaching in University of America in Beirut, that is also a good translation. Of course, Kuli Karai, which is a Shia translator and a scholar, right, and who has been working to improve his translation already is the 6th edition, right? So that is also these 4 translations. I believe that every madrasa should have it, every masjid should have it, every scholar who is a speaker should have this translation, so that you can then compare the translations, right? We complete here. I'll take questions. These are few slides. Just I will share with you. These are interesting websites. For example, alislam.org. If you go there, alislam.org/Quran, there are 3 translations, and the commentary, a bridge commentary by Kuli Karai, by not Kuli Karai, but by Agapuya. So there are translations of Yusuf Ali, Pekthol, and Meshakir with a commentary by Agapuya. No, this is. Then there is 5 translation with text and translations. This is quite interesting. This is the Sunni website, alim.org. It has 5 translations with text and transliteration of each verse, right? And also, I think there is an Arabic text, where there's also recitation. Now, these are all non-Muslim, non-Shia translations, but they are there side by side, which is quite interesting. Then there's another website which is 7 translations with word-by-word explanation, which is interesting. That means there are 7 translations, but each word has been explained, its meaning, and you can imagine. Then there is another website, Tanzil. Tanzil.net, of course, is by a Shia youth who has worked very hard from University of Waterloo, Tanzil, which has 18 English translations and recitation by 26 qaris. So Tanzil.net is the must. All of you, after this presentation, You go and open tanzil.net and just save that website as a favorite. No, you should have this thing because tanzil.net has 26 qaris, reciters. It has 18 translations in English. It also has translation in other language, but just English 18 translations. So it's a must website. All of you must have in your computer as a favorite. No? So keep this in mind, right? And this is just the reference. Those are interested. When I did my this presentation, this course prepared, I use this. These are the works I use. No article by Jafar Razi. No Quran Orientals by Muhammad Ali Mahar. Right, Kidavi's two works, and of course Quran by Lawrence. So these are of four works, four books, and one article I used to prepare this course. No. Any questions, any clarifications? We are going to be joined shortly by Haji Onali Khalfan. As you know, he runs Tehreek Tafsir Quran, has published and printed many copies of Quran. Inshallah, he'll be with us. So if you have any questions, please, you can put in attendee chat. In the meantime, I'll just Okay, thank you very much. Somebody has said here that I found translation by Maulana Maududi very easy to understand when compared to Ali Kuli Karai. Yes, that is correct. I can understand. But keep in mind, Maududi did not translate himself. Maududi wrote Tafhim al Quran, a very exhaustive work in Urdu. What has been done that people have used his tafsir and come up with English translation. And it has been translated twice. So it is not a work from Arabic. Keep that in mind. It is a work from Arabic into Urdu, and that also it was not translated. It was a tafsir work, and then the tafsir work has been then translated into English. So keep that in mind only as just now. But of course, yeah, I understand that it was easy to understand. Any other questions? In the meantime, let me see if Onalibai is there. Then I can just promote him so he can do that. I think Okay, can somebody let me know by chat that who is Onalibai is using what, Sajida or Shirin Khalfan? I think it must be Shirin Khalfan, right? So let me promote him. Okay, somehow I cannot promote Onalibai. There is some, I don't know, is your audio connected? No, Shirin Bhai? Because I'm trying to promote you, I cannot promote it. Yeah, because Shirin Bhai, you're using mobile device, that's why we cannot, we have to use the computer. Shirin Bhai, can you hear me? You're using a mobile device to connect the course, and that's why we cannot promote you as a presenter. You need to use a computer so we can promote you as a presenter, as only by can say. Okay, so any questions, any clarifications? We are trying to wait for only by to join, but it seems that they are using mobile device, and that will not allow me to promote them as presenter. Any clarifications? Any questions? Yes. Let me try to contact only by see if I can contact him. Okay. Okay. My apologies. I think that no, we